Have you ever walked into a room and felt like someone could see straight through your soul without saying a single word? That person might have been an INFJ, and here's the thing. They probably had no clue they were making you feel that way. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into the mysterious world of INFJs and uncovering 12 surprising ways they intimidate others without even trying. If you're an INFJ watching this, you might be shocked to learn just how powerful your presence really is. And if you know an INFJ, well, this video's gonna explain why they sometimes feel like they can read your mind. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's explore the hidden intimidation factor of the world's rarest personality type. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why INFJs are often called the most mysterious people you'll ever meet. 1. Their eyes see everything, and we mean everything. Let's start with something that'll probably make every INFJ watching this feel a bit exposed. You know that thing you do with your eyes? Yeah, that intense stare that seems to peer directly into people's souls? Well, it's way more intimidating than you think. INFJs have this uncanny ability to maintain eye contact that feels different from everyone else's. It's not just looking at someone, it's like they're scanning, analyzing, and understanding things about you that you haven't even figured out about yourself yet. When an INFJ looks at you, it doesn't feel casual or surface level. It feels like they're reading chapters of your life story that you forgot you wrote. Most people aren't used to being truly seen. We're all walking around with our masks and personas, keeping our real selves hidden. But then an INFJ comes along with those knowing eyes, and suddenly you feel naked, not physically, but emotionally and psychologically. It's terrifying because most of us aren't ready for that level of genuine connection. Here's what makes it even more intimidating. INFJs don't just see your current state. They see your potential, your fears, your hidden dreams, and sometimes even the lies you tell yourself. They're picking up on micro-expressions, body language, and energy that most people completely miss. And the crazy part? They're doing all of this subconsciously. They can't turn it off even if they wanted to. Think about the last time someone really looked at you. Not through you, not past you, but actually at you. It probably made you squirm a little, right? That's the INFJ effect in action. 2. They know your secrets before you tell them. This one's gonna sound almost supernatural, but stick with me here. INFJs have this freaky ability to know things about people that they've never been told. It's like they have some kind of internal radar that picks up on hidden truths, and honestly, it can be downright intimidating for everyone else. Picture this scenario. You're talking to an INFJ about something completely unrelated, maybe work or the weather, and suddenly they make a comment that hits way too close to home. They might casually mention something about family dynamics, or they'll ask a question that makes you wonder if they've been talking to your therapist. The thing is, they haven't. This happens because INFJs are constantly processing information on multiple levels. While you're having a surface conversation, their minds are connecting dots, recognizing patterns, and piecing together a complex puzzle of who you are. They're noticing the slight change in your voice when you mention your boss, the way your shoulders tense when someone brings up relationships, or how your energy shifts when certain topics come up. What makes this particularly intimidating is that INFJs often know things about you that you're not ready to acknowledge yourself. They might sense that you're unhappy in your relationship before you've admitted it to yourself. They could pick up on career dissatisfaction that you've been pushing down for months. Sometimes they'll even sense health issues or emotional struggles that you haven't told anyone about. The scary part for most people is wondering, what else do they know about me that I don't realize I'm broadcasting? It creates this feeling of being transparent, like your inner world is on display for them to read whenever they want. 3. Their silence speaks louder than words. Now here's something that might surprise you. Sometimes the most intimidating thing about an INFJ isn't what they say, but what they don't say. Their silence has this weight to it that can make a room feel heavy with unspoken understanding. When most people get quiet, it usually means they're bored, distracted, or have nothing to contribute. But when an INFJ goes silent, it feels different. It feels loaded. You can almost sense the wheels turning, the observations being made, the judgments being formed, even though they're probably not judging you at all. This type of silence is intimidating because it creates space for truth to emerge. Most of us are comfortable with noise, chatter, and surface-level conversation because it keeps us safe from deeper examination. But INFJ silence? It's like a vacuum that draws out authenticity whether you're ready for it or not. In group settings, this becomes even more pronounced. While everyone else is talking, laughing, and filling the air with words, the INFJ might be sitting quietly, observing everything. They're not antisocial or disengaged, they're absorbing, processing, and understanding the group dynamic on a level that others aren't even aware exists. People often misinterpret this silence as disapproval or judgment, which makes it feel even more intimidating. They start wondering, what are they thinking about me? Do they think I'm stupid? Are they analyzing everything I'm saying? The truth is, INFJs are usually just processing information and trying to understand the bigger picture, but their silence can feel like a spotlight on everyone else's behavior. For they remember everything, yes, everything. Here's where things get really intense. INFJs have this almost superhuman ability to remember details about people, conversations, and situations that others have completely forgotten. And we're not talking about remembering big events, we're talking about remembering the exact words you used 3 months ago when you mentioned feeling frustrated at work. This creates an intimidation factor that's hard to explain unless you've experienced it. Imagine having a casual conversation with someone, and they bring up something you said weeks or months ago, word for word. Not only do they remember what you said, but they remember the context, your emotional state, and probably what you were wearing when you said it. For most people, this level of attention and memory retention feels overwhelming. It means you can't just say things without thinking about them. It means your words have weight and permanence in ways you're not used to. It means someone is actually listening, really listening, to everything you say, and they're filing it all away in their mental database of who you are. This becomes particularly intimidating in relationships. You can't just brush off a comment or pretend you didn't say something because the INFJ will remember. They'll remember not just your words, but the energy behind them, the circumstances that led to them, and how those words fit into the larger pattern of your behavior and personality. What makes this even more intense is that INFJs don't just remember random facts about you, they remember emotionally significant moments. They remember when you were vulnerable, when you were excited, when you were scared, and when you were being completely authentic. They're creating this detailed emotional map of who you are, whether you realize it or not. 5. Their emotional intelligence is off the charts. Let's talk about something that makes INFJs absolutely terrifying to people who aren't used to genuine emotional depth. Their emotional intelligence is legitimately off the charts. We're talking about people who can read emotional undercurrents like others read street signs. Most of us go through life with a pretty basic understanding of emotions. We know when we're happy, sad, angry, or frustrated, and we can usually recognize these same emotions in others when they're obvious. But INFJs? They're operating on a completely different level. They can sense emotional subtleties that most people don't even know exist. They'll pick up on the slight disappointment you're trying to hide behind your smile. They'll notice the anxiety you're masking with humor. They'll sense the loneliness you're covering up with busyness. And here's the kicker. They'll often understand these emotions better than you do yourself. This creates an intimidation factor because it means you can't hide emotionally around an INFJ. All those defense mechanisms you've built up over the years, the ways you've learned to protect yourself by keeping people at arm's length emotionally, none of that works with them. They see right through it, not because they're trying to invade your privacy, but because emotional authenticity is their natural language. What makes this particularly intense is that INFJs don't just recognize emotions, they feel them. Their empathy is so strong that they often absorb the emotions of people around them. This means when you're struggling, they're struggling. When you're in pain, they feel that pain too. This level of emotional connection can be overwhelming for people who aren't used to being truly understood. 6. They challenge people without saying a word. Here's something that might blow your mind. INFJs can challenge your entire worldview without ever directly confronting you or starting an argument. They do this simply by being themselves, and it's more intimidating than any heated debate could ever be. Think about it this way. Most of us live with certain compromises, justifications, and little lies we tell ourselves to make life easier. Maybe we stay in jobs we hate because it's safe. Maybe we maintain relationships that aren't serving us because change is scary. Maybe we've given up on dreams because pursuing them feels too risky. Then an INFJ walks into your life, and suddenly you're face to face with someone who's actually living authentically. They're making choices based on their values rather than their fears. They're pursuing meaning over money, connection over convenience, and growth over comfort. They're not preaching about it or telling you what to do, they're just living it. This becomes intimidating because their very existence starts to highlight the areas where you might not be living up to your own potential. It's like having a mirror held up to your life, showing you the gap between who you are and who you could be. The INFJ isn't trying to make you feel bad about your choices. They're usually too busy focusing on their own growth to judge yours, but their authenticity can feel like a challenge nonetheless. What makes this particularly intense is that INFJs often seem to have figured out things that others are still struggling with. They've usually done a lot of inner work, faced their demons, and come out the other side with a clarity that can be both inspiring and intimidating. They make living authentically look possible, which forces others to confront why they're not doing the same. 7. Their intuition borders on psychic. Now we're getting into territory that might sound a bit mystical, but bear with me because this is where INFJs become truly intimidating. Their intuition is so developed that it often feels supernatural to people who don't understand how it works. INFJs can walk into a room and immediately sense the energy, who's had an argument, who's hiding something, who's genuinely happy versus who's just pretending. They can meet someone for the first time and get an instant read on their character that turns out to be remarkably accurate. They often know when something significant is about to happen before there are any obvious signs. This isn't magic, it's pattern recognition and intuitive processing that's been developed to an extraordinary degree. INFJs are constantly taking in information from their environment, processing it subconsciously, and forming insights that feel like they come from nowhere. But to people who don't operate this way, it can feel downright eerie. Imagine being around someone who seems to predict outcomes, sense hidden motivations, and understand complex situations without having all the facts. It's intimidating because it challenges our understanding of how knowledge and insight work. Most of us are used to people who need obvious information to draw conclusions, but INFJs are connecting dots that others can't even see. This becomes particularly unnerving in personal relationships. An INFJ might sense that something's wrong in your life before you've said anything about it. They might know you're about to make a big decision before you've fully formed the thought yourself. They might understand family dynamics after meeting your relatives once. This level of insight can feel invasive, even when it comes from a place of caring. 8. They see potential that others can't. Here's where INFJs become intimidating in a way that's actually beautiful but terrifying at the same time. They see potential in people that those people can't see in themselves. They look at you and see not just who you are right now, but who you could become with the right growth and circumstances. This is intimidating because most of us have gotten comfortable with our limitations. We've accepted certain things about ourselves as permanent fixtures, our weaknesses, our fears, are areas where we think we'll never improve. It's easier to live within these self-imposed boundaries than to challenge them. But then an INFJ comes along and sees through all of that. They see the leader in the person who thinks they're too shy to lead. They see the artist in the person who's convinced they have no creative talent. They see the healer in the person who thinks they're too broken to help others. And they don't just see this potential, they believe in it with a conviction that can be overwhelming. What makes this particularly intimidating is that INFJs often see potential that requires significant growth to realize. They're not just saying you're great as you are, they're seeing who you could become if you were willing to do the work, face your fears, and push beyond your comfort zone. This can feel like both a gift and a burden because suddenly you're aware of possibilities you never considered before. The intimidating part is that once an INFJ has shown you this potential, it becomes harder to settle for less. They've planted a seed of possibility that can make your current limitations feel more like choices than facts. This can be deeply uncomfortable for people who aren't ready to embrace change or growth. 9. Their depth makes small talk feel impossible. Let's talk about something that makes social situations with INFJs feel completely different from the norm. Their natural depth makes surface-level conversation feel almost impossible to maintain. This isn't because they're being difficult or pretentious. It's because shallow interaction feels genuinely uncomfortable for them. Most social interactions operate on a pretty predictable level. We talk about weather, work, current events, or shared activities. These conversations are safe, easy, and don't require much emotional investment from anyone involved. They're social lubricants that help groups function without getting too complicated. But INFJs struggle with this type of interaction because it feels hollow to them. They're naturally drawn to meaningful conversation, the kind that explores ideas, emotions, values, and deeper truths about life. When forced into small talk, they often become quiet, awkward, or seem disengaged, which can make others feel judged or inadequate. This creates an intimidation factor because being around an INFJ makes superficial conversation feel exactly like what it is, superficial. Their very presence seems to call for something more substantial, more authentic, more real. People start to feel like their usual social scripts aren't working, like they need to dig deeper or say something more meaningful to connect. What makes this particularly challenging is that INFJs often don't realize they're creating this pressure. They're not consciously judging small talk or demanding deeper conversation. They're just naturally operating at a level that makes surface interaction feel insufficient. Their discomfort with shallow topics becomes obvious, which makes others feel like they need to step up their conversational game. 10. They mirror your true self back to you. Now we're getting to perhaps the most intimidating thing about INFJs, their ability to mirror your authentic self back to you, often showing you parts of yourself you didn't know existed or weren't ready to acknowledge. This happens because INFJs interact with the real you, not the persona you present to the world. They see through social masks, professional facades, and protective barriers to connect with your core self. And when someone relates to you at that level, it forces you to show up authentically too, whether you're comfortable with it or not. Think about how most interactions work. You present a version of yourself that's appropriate for the situation, and others respond to that version. It's a dance of personas that keeps everyone comfortable and safe. But INFJs don't really engage with personas. They connect with the person underneath, which means you suddenly find yourself being more real than you intended to be. This can be incredibly intimidating because most of us aren't used to being seen and accepted for who we really are. We're used to being liked for the image we project, the role we play, or the value we provide. But INFJs relate to your essence, your authentic self, including parts of you that you might not even like about yourself. What makes this particularly intense is that INFJs often bring out qualities in people that have been dormant or suppressed. They might interact with your creativity when you thought you weren't creative. They might connect with your wisdom when you thought you had nothing valuable to say. They might see your strength when you thought you were weak. This mirroring effect can be transformative, but it's also terrifying because it challenges your self-concept. Suddenly you're confronted with aspects of yourself you didn't know existed, and you have to decide what to do with this new self-awareness. 11. Their standards are higher than most people can handle. Here's something that makes INFJs intimidating in professional and personal relationships. Their standards are usually higher than what most people are used to meeting. Not because they're perfectionists or judgmental, but because they naturally operate from a place of integrity and authenticity that requires a certain level of depth and commitment. In friendships, INFJs don't just want casual buddies to hang out with. They want meaningful connections with people who are willing to be vulnerable, honest, and real. They're not interested in surface-level relationships that don't go anywhere deeper than shared activities or common complaints about life. In professional settings, INFJs expect work to have meaning and purpose beyond just earning money. They want to contribute to something meaningful, work with people who share similar values, and feel like their efforts are making a positive impact. This can make them seem difficult to please or unrealistically idealistic. In romantic relationships, INFJs are looking for deep emotional connection, shared values, and partners who are committed to personal growth. They're not interested in playing games, keeping things casual indefinitely, or relationships that don't have the potential for long-term depth and meaning. What makes this intimidating is that these standards force others to examine their own approach to relationships and commitments. Being around an INFJ highlights areas where you might be settling for less than you deserve or avoiding the deeper work that meaningful connections require. 12. They process everything on multiple levels simultaneously. The final intimidating factor we're going to explore is perhaps the most complex. INFJs process information, interactions, and experiences on multiple levels simultaneously, which creates an intensity that can be overwhelming for people who operate more simply. When you're having a conversation with an INFJ, they're not just listening to your words. They're also reading your body language, sensing your emotional state, considering the context of your relationship, thinking about how this conversation fits into larger patterns they've observed, and often planning how they can be most helpful or supportive based on what they're perceiving. This multi-level processing means that interactions with INFJs often feel more significant than similar interactions with other people. There's a weight to the conversation, a sense that everything is being noticed and understood in ways that go beyond the surface content of what's being discussed. What makes this particularly intimidating is that this level of processing is happening automatically for INFJs. They can't turn it off. So even in casual interactions, there's this undercurrent of depth and analysis that can make others feel like they're under a microscope, even though that's not the INFJ's intention. This creates pressure for others to show up more fully in interactions, to be more thoughtful about what they're saying and doing, and to engage at a level that matches the INFJ's natural depth. For people who are used to operating on autopilot in social situations, this can feel exhausting and intimidating. Conclusion. So there you have it, 12 ways that INFJs are more intimidating than they probably realize. From their soul-piercing eye contact to their multi-level processing of every interaction, INFJs naturally operate at an intensity level that can be overwhelming for people who aren't used to that much depth and authenticity. But here's the thing I want you to remember, whether you're an INFJ or someone who knows one. This intimidation factor isn't a flaw or something that needs to be fixed. It's actually a superpower, even if it sometimes feels like a burden. For INFJs watching this, understanding your intimidating qualities can help you navigate relationships more effectively. You can learn to dial down the intensity when appropriate, give people space to be comfortable with surface-level interaction when that's what they need, and recognize that not everyone is ready for the depth you naturally operate at. For those of you who know INFJs, understanding these qualities can help you appreciate the unique gifts they bring to your life. Yes, being around someone this perceptive and authentic can be intimidating, but it's also an opportunity for tremendous growth and genuine connection. The world needs people who see deeply, feel intensely, and refuse to settle for superficial connections. INFJs challenge the rest of us to be more authentic, more aware, and more committed to meaningful relationships and experiences. That's not intimidating, that's inspiring. Remember, being intimidating isn't about being scary or threatening. Sometimes it's about being so genuinely yourself that you give others permission to be genuine too. And in a world full of masks and personas, that kind of authenticity can feel revolutionary. So whether you're an INFJ learning to embrace your natural intensity or someone learning to appreciate the INFJs in your life, remember that these intimidating qualities are actually invitations to go deeper, to be more real, and to create connections that actually matter. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe if this video resonated with you. Let me know in the comments if you recognize these traits in yourself or someone you know, and share your experiences with the unique intensity that INFJs bring to the world. Until next time, keep growing, keep connecting, and remember that your depth is a gift, not a flaw.